Some people do not just feel emotions, they absorb them. A passing comment lingers for days. A stranger's sadness quietly settles in the chest. Joy arrives intensely but leaves just as deeply. To feel too much is not loud. It is often silent, private, and misunderstood. It is the experience of carrying the world slightly closer to the heart than others do. These individuals are often told they are sensitive, dramatic, or fragile, yet beneath that label lives a different truth, a nervous system tuned finely, a mind constantly interpreting meaning, a heart that notices what others overlook. This story is not about weakness. It is about perception, about emotional depth, and about what happens when feeling becomes both a gift and a quiet burden. Some people move through the world with the volume turned up, not outwardly, but inwardly. Sounds linger, expressions carry weight, silence feels full rather than empty. It is often not noticed at first, not named, just lived. For those who feel deeply, emotional intensity does not arrive as a dramatic event. It arrives quietly, folded into ordinary moments. A casual remark carries a hidden edge. A change in tone alters the atmosphere of an entire room. A look held a second too long invites interpretation. The world does not merely happen around them, it presses in, asking to be felt, understood, absorbed. This is usually where awareness begins, not with a realization of being different, but with a subtle sense of disproportion. Reactions feel larger than the situations that provoke them. A minor disappointment settles heavily in the chest. A small kindness feels luminous, almost overwhelming. There is confusion in this contrast. Others move on quickly. Emotions pass through them like weather, but here, feelings linger. They echo. Often this sensitivity is first noticed in comparison, in conversations where others laugh something off, in conflicts that seem easily forgotten by everyone else. The deeply feeling person is still replaying the moment, searching for meaning, wondering what was missed, not because they want to suffer but because their mind and nervous system are oriented toward depth, toward nuance, toward what lies beneath the surface. There is no clear language for this at the beginning, only quiet questions. Why does this stay with me? Why does it feel like too much? At this stage, emotional sensitivity is not yet framed as a flaw. It is simply a fact of experience, a pattern that repeats itself across situations and relationships. Emotions arrive quickly and with detail. They come with texture, memories, associations, bodily sensations. Feeling is not a single note, it is a chord. This heightened awareness often extends beyond personal emotion. It includes the emotional states of others. A room's mood is immediately felt. Tension enters the body without explanation. Another person's sadness appears before words confirm it. There is a permeability here, an openness that allows emotional information to pass through easily, and because of this openness, rest can feel rare. The nervous system remains alert, attuned, responsive. Even neutral environments carry stimuli. Lights feel brighter, sounds feel sharper. Social interactions require more internal processing than they appear to require for others. Yet none of this feels exceptional from the inside. It feels normal until it is mirrored back. You're overthinking, you're too sensitive, you take things too personally. These statements land early, even if gently. They introduce doubt where there was once only experience. Slowly, the question shifts. It is no longer just why does this feel intense? It becomes what is wrong with me for feeling this way. But at the beginning, before that doubt fully forms, there is simply recognition. A dawning awareness that emotional life is lived at a different depth, that internal responses do not match the visible reactions of others, that what feels significant inside may appear minor from the outside. This recognition can feel isolating, but it is also honest. It is the first moment of seeing one's inner world clearly, not yet judging it, just noticing its volume, its richness, its constant motion. To feel too much is not about chaos. It is about sensitivity to signal, to emotional data others filter out without effort. This awareness does not ask to be turned off, it asks to be understood. And in this early stage, before explanations or defenses are formed, there is only the quiet truth. Everything feels louder here, not because the world is harsher, but because perception is deeper. Sensitivity does not appear suddenly. It forms slowly, in spaces where attention mattered, or where it was absent. It grows where emotion was something to notice closely, either to connect, or to stay safe. For many who feel deeply, childhood was not defined by a single dramatic moment, but by atmosphere. An environment where moods shifted unpredictably, where silence carried meaning, where emotional awareness became a kind of early language. The child learned to read the room before reading books, learned tone before vocabulary, learned feeling before logic. In some homes, sensitivity develops through closeness, a caregiver who shared emotions openly, a household where feelings were discussed, mirrored, and taken seriously. In these spaces, emotional attunement was encouraged. The child learned that noticing emotion mattered, that it was valuable to understand what others were feeling. Empathy became a skill practiced daily. In other homes, sensitivity emerged through uncertainty, where anger arrived without warning, where love was conditional or inconsistent. In these environments, emotional awareness was not a gift, it was a survival tool. The child learned to sense subtle changes in expression, posture, or energy. Safety depended on anticipation. Feeling deeply was not optional, it was necessary. Both paths lead to the same outcome, a nervous system trained to pay close attention. This early attunement shapes the inner world. The child does not simply feel emotions, they track them. They notice patterns, they form associations. Emotional memory becomes vivid, detailed. Feelings are stored with context, sound, and meaning, and because these patterns are learned early, they feel innate later. Sensitivity is experienced as personality rather than adaptation. There is no memory of choosing this way of being. It simply feels like how the world has always been perceived. Over time, this emotional depth becomes intertwined with identity. The deeply feeling person often becomes the listener, the observer, the one who understands. They may be praised for empathy, maturity, or insight, especially at a young age, but that praise carries an unspoken cost. Being emotionally perceptive can mean being emotionally responsible for others. There is also what was never learned. In environments where emotions were intense or overwhelming, regulation was rarely modeled. The child learned how to feel, but not how to recover, how to sense, but not how to separate. Emotional boundaries remained undefined. As life expanded beyond childhood, these early patterns followed quietly. Relationships felt intense from the start. Conflict felt destabilizing. Disconnection felt catastrophic rather than uncomfortable. Emotional reactions appeared disproportionate, not because they were irrational, but because they were layered with old meaning. A present moment was rarely just present. It carried echoes. This is often where confusion begins. The adult wonders why certain interactions feel heavier than they should, why small rejections feel deeply personal, why emotional pain feels familiar, almost rehearsed. Without understanding the origin, the intensity feels unexplainable. But sensitivity is not a flaw formed in isolation. It is shaped in relationship. It is the imprint of early emotional learning of what was required to belong, to be seen, to remain safe. Some learned that noticing others was how connection happened. Some learned it was how harm was avoided. In both cases, feeling deeply became part of how love was understood. This does not mean every sensitive person came from difficulty. It means every sensitive person came from meaningful emotional exposure. Their inner world developed early and richly. Emotions were not abstract concepts, they were lived experiences. Understanding this origin does not assign blame, it offers context. It reframes sensitivity not as excess, but as history, as memory held in the nervous system, as a skill that formed before it could be named. And with this understanding comes a softer truth. Nothing about this depth is accidental. It began where feeling mattered. What feels personal is often biological. What feels overwhelming is often neurological. And what feels like too much is frequently the result of a system designed to notice more. Psychology offers a quiet explanation for deep emotional experience, one that does not reduce it to disorder or deficiency. Some nervous systems are simply more responsive, more receptive, more finely tuned to emotional and sensory input. This is not a malfunction, it is a variation. Research on sensory processing sensitivity suggests that some individuals process information more deeply at the neural level. Stimuli are not merely registered, they are analyzed, connected, and integrated. Emotional input follows the same pathway. Feelings are not brief signals, they are complex data. This depth of processing means that emotions take longer to move through the system. The brain does not rush to resolution. It pauses, it reflects, it searches for meaning. As a result, emotional reactions may appear delayed, extended, or intensified, not because the emotion is stronger, but because it is being fully processed. There is also the role of the limbic system, the brain's emotional center. In people who feel deeply, emotional stimuli often activate this system more quickly and more strongly. The amygdala responds with heightened alertness. The body reacts before the mind can contextualize. A raised voice triggers tension. A subtle rejection activates threat. The experience is physical as much as emotional. This explains why emotional intensity is often felt in the body. Tightness in the chest, a heaviness in the stomach, a sudden wave of fatigue. These are not imagined responses. They are physiological reactions to perceived emotional significance. Empathy plays a role as well. Highly empathic individuals experience what psychologists call emotional contagion, the automatic mirroring of another person's emotional state. This is not conscious imitation. It is a neural response. Mirror neurons activate. The body responds as if the emotion were its own. This is why emotional environments matter so deeply. Crowded spaces, tense rooms, unresolved conversations, these settings carry emotional information. For a sensitive nervous system, there is little filtration. The boundary between self and other becomes porous. Importantly, this sensitivity is not limited to negative emotion. Joy can be just as intense. Beauty can feel overwhelming. Music can move through the body with physical force. Meaning is felt viscerally. The same system that registers pain deeply also registers wonder. But modern environments are rarely built for this depth. Fast-paced interactions, constant stimulation, emotional noise. The nervous system rarely gets a break. Over time, this can lead to emotional exhaustion, not because of weakness, but because of sustained activation. The mind begins to search for control. It replays, it anticipates. This cognitive activity is not random, it is an attempt to manage emotional input, to make sense of intensity, to predict what might hurt next. That, without understanding the biology, this process feels like personal failure, like emotional instability, like fragility. But science tells a different story. It tells of a system operating exactly as designed, unjust, in a world that rarely slows down enough to honor it. Sensitivity does not mean an inability to cope. It means a need for different conditions. For pacing, for recovery, for emotional honesty. And when this scientific framing becomes visible, something shifts. The narrative changes. Emotional depth is no longer mysterious or shameful. It becomes understandable, legitimate, human. The question is no longer, why do I feel this much? It becomes, what kind of system am I living in? And in that question, self-blame begins to loosen its grip. Awareness does not immediately bring peace. Often it brings conflict. For those who feel deeply, the inner world becomes a place of negotiation, between what is felt and what is allowed, between instinct and expectation, between sensitivity and survival in a world that prizes emotional restraint. At some point, the message becomes internalized. This way of feeling is inconvenient, too slow, too intense, too heavy. The world moves quickly, conversations end abruptly, relationships reward ease, not depth. Emotional intensity begins to feel like a liability, that's how resistance forms. The deeply feeling person learns to monitor themselves, to pre-edit reactions, to swallow responses before they surface. There is a constant internal question, is this too much? And with that question comes self-doubt. Emotional experiences are no longer trusted. They are scrutinized. This internal resistance creates fragmentation. One part of the self feels freely, another stands guard, watching, judging, trying to keep emotions contained enough to be acceptable. The mind becomes a mediator between the heart and the world. But emotions do not disappear when they are restrained. They accumulate. Unexpressed feeling finds other exits. Fatigue becomes chronic. Anxiety simmers beneath calm appearances. Sadness stretches quietly over long periods, unnamed and unresolved. Emotional energy is spent, not on feeling, but on holding back feeling. There is also grief here. Grief for how easily others seem to move on, for how quickly they forgive, forget, or detach. The deeply feeling person often envies this lightness, not because they want to be careless, but because they want relief. This can lead to self-betrayal. Moments where emotional truth is dismissed in favor of fitting in, where discomfort is tolerated rather than acknowledged. Over time, the inner world becomes less safe. Emotions arrive but are not welcomed. They are seen as problems to solve. And yet, suppression creates its own intensity. What is pushed down returns, amplified. A small trigger releases a wave of emotion that seems disproportionate. This reinforces the belief that emotions are dangerous, unmanageable, something to be controlled at all costs. The inner struggle deepens. There is also the fear of being a burden, of asking too much, of needing more reassurance, more time, more understanding than others. This fear silences expression. It teaches endurance instead of communication. But endurance is not the same as strength. Strength in this context would mean allowing emotion to exist without punishment. Yet the inner critic insists otherwise. It says, "You should be over this by now. You're too affected. Why can't you be normal?" This voice is rarely cruel. It is practical, protective. It wants safety through conformity. It believes that minimizing feeling will minimize pain. But the cost is disconnection from intuition, from authenticity, from the very sensitivity that once offered insight and depth. This chapter is not about failure. It is about adaptation under pressure. The inner struggle is the result of trying to live deeply in a shallow emotional economy, of translating nuance into simplicity, of compressing experience to fit expectations. Understanding this struggle is crucial, because it reveals that the problem is not feeling too much, it is feeling too much alone, without validation, without language, without permission. And beneath the resistance, something remains intact. The capacity to feel, the capacity to notice, the capacity to care. They have not disappeared. They are waiting. The turning point is rarely dramatic. There is no announcement, no sudden clarity, only a subtle shift in how emotion is interpreted. It begins when the question changes, not "How do I stop feeling this way?" but "What if this feeling is trying to tell the truth?" This realization often arrives in quiet moments, after exhaustion, after emotional burnout, after the cost of resistance becomes impossible to ignore. The deeply feeling person notices that suppression has not brought peace, only distance from themselves. There is a moment of recognition that the intensity has never actually been the enemy, that the suffering came not from feeling, but from judging the feeling, from believing it should not exist. This is not self-love yet. It is not acceptance. It is curiosity. Curiosity softens the inner critic. It allows emotion to be observed rather than managed. A wave of sadness arrives, and instead of pushing it away, it is noticed, named, allowed to move. This changes the relationship entirely. Emotion is no longer an intruder. It becomes information, a signal from within, something to listen to, not correct. Even discomfort begins to feel purposeful rather than punishing. There is also relief in this shift. Relief in realizing that depth has always had coherence. That reactions were not random or excessive, but context, rooted in memory, meaning, and sensitivity to nuance. The deeply feeling person begins to see patterns rather than flaws. They recognize how certain environments amplify emotional intensity, how certain people bring calm or chaos. Awareness replaces confusion. This is where compassion quietly enters, not as a grand gesture, but as a change in tone. The inner voice becomes less sharp, less demanding. It begins to say, "Of course this hurts. Of course this matters." These statements do not solve the feeling. They accompany it. There is also grief in this realization. Grief for the years spent trying to become someone else, for the energy spent hiding, minimizing, enduring. This grief is not bitter. It is tender. It honors what was carried without understanding. And then something settles. The deeply feeling person recognizes that emotional intensity has always been connected to meaning. They feel deeply because they value deeply. They react because they care. The same system that feels pain also feels connection, beauty, and resonance. This understanding does not remove overwhelm. It reframes it. Emotional waves are no longer signs of failure. They are signs of engagement with life, of presence, of awareness. That the realization is simple, but profound. Sensitivity is not a mistake. It is a way of relating. This shift does not require anyone else to change. It does not depend on validation. It happens internally, quietly, without spectacle. It is the moment emotional depth stops asking for permission, and from this place, a new relationship with feeling becomes possible. One built not on control but on trust. Healing does not mean feeling less. It means feeling with more space. For those who feel deeply. Integration begins when emotion is no longer something to fight or escape. It becomes something to hold gently, honestly, without urgency. This is not emotional mastery. It is emotional companionship. Holding emotion requires a different kind of strength. Not the strength to endure silently, but the strength to stay present. To allow a feeling to exist without demanding it resolve immediately. This is unfamiliar at first. The mind wants conclusions. The body wants relief. But healing unfolds in patience. Boundaries become essential. Here not rigid walls, but filters. Learning to notice where emotional input begins and where it can end. Understanding that empathy does not require absorption. That caring does not require self-erasure. This learning is subtle. It happens through awareness rather than rules. The deeply feeling person begins to sense when a feeling belongs to them and when it has been picked up from someone else. This distinction is not intellectual. It is felt. The body learns it over time. There is also a shift in pacing. Sensitive systems need rhythm, rest, quiet, recovery, not as avoidance, but as maintenance. Just as muscles require rest after exertion, emotional depth requires intervals of stillness. Integration also involves language, naming emotion without dramatizing it, saying, internally, this is sadness, or this is overwhelm, without adding judgment. Language becomes grounding. It gives form to what once felt chaotic. Importantly, healing does not erase intensity. It makes it navigable. Feelings still arrive strongly, but they are no longer disorienting. They move through rather than taking over. Self. That self-compassion plays a quiet role here. Not indulgence, not excuse, just understanding, the recognition that this system has always been doing its best to protect, to connect, to make sense of the world, that there is no final arrival point. Integration is ongoing. Some days feel balanced, others feel heavy. This variability is not regression. It is the nature of emotional life. What changes is the relationship. Emotion is no longer something to be survived. It becomes something to be lived with, and in that coexistence, something stabilizes. Not numbness but trust. Trust that feeling deeply will not destroy what has been built. Trust that intensity can be held without being consumed by it. This is not a louder life. It is a steadier one. There is a quiet dignity in feeling deeply. It does not announce itself. It does not seek recognition. It simply remains present. In a world that often rewards detachment, emotional sensitivity moves differently. It pauses where others pass through. It notices where others overlook. It listens where others rush to respond. This way of being is not inefficient, it is attentive. To feel too much is to experience life without protective distance. Moments arrive fully. Loss is felt honestly. Joy is not diluted. Meaning is not abstract. It is lived, embodied, remembered. This depth does not make life easier, but it makes it real. Those who feel deeply often become quiet witnesses. They hold stories. They carry emotional truth. They sense undercurrents before they surface. This awareness is rarely visible, but it shapes how they love, how they listen, how they remain present in moments others avoid. A softer way to exist does not mean withdrawing from the world. It means engaging with it on humane terms, allowing emotion to be part of the experience without apology, without explanation, without defense. There is peace in this softness, not the peace of numbness, but the peace of alignment. When inner experience no longer has to be hidden or justified, when sensitivity is no longer negotiated away for comfort. This way of being creates quiet integrity. Life feels coherent again. Reactions make sense. Emotions feel earned. There is less confusion, even when there is pain. The deeply feeling person no longer asks whether they are too much. They ask whether they are being honest. And honesty brings steadiness. There will always be moments of overwhelm. Moments when the world feels loud again, but they are no longer frightening. They are signals to slow down, to listen, to return inward without shame. That this is not a story of transformation. There is nothing to become, nothing to fix, only something to honor. Feeling deeply is not a problem to solve. It is a way of experiencing life, and when it is allowed to exist without resistance, without judgment, without fear, it becomes what it always was, a form of quiet wisdom.